Well, my name is Jim H. Cowman, Cowman. It's pronounced Coleman, but it's spelled Cowman. And my first time with the Tank Battalion was in 63, 64. In those years, I went over there really it's a tour and a half in Vietnam, and I'm going to talk about that. But I spent most of the first 13 months associated with tanks. The later one came in about 70, 71. It was a 6-month tour, and I'm going to talk about that too because there's some colorful stuff in that business that I was doing for the Development Center out of Quantico.
Okay. All right. Well, where do you want to start?
Well, I'll tell you what I think is a good little story. I know I enjoyed this, so I'm going to rattle on about it. Hack, that's a nickname for Doc Hackenback, the corpsman. He looks like Santa Claus, and everybody knows him. He plays the accordion. He's really a neat person. I hadn't seen him for 57 years. When I came to this reunion, I walked right by him, and I remember looking at his hat and seeing Corpsman on it, and I said, I wonder if that's Hack. Turned out it was. He looked at my name tag and said, well, that's Coleman. And we caught each other, and it was rather emotional because we did a lot of goofy things together helping. But that was with the Tank Battalion. They were at Chulai at that time. And I think it was Roughhouse Taylor was the colonel, but they had a good reputation in civil affairs. In other words, we had a group that we sent into that river, the town by the river called Tiktai. I never heard that again till this reunion. I couldn't tell you the name of that town. But the Tank Battalion built a miniature little hospital first aid shack down there, painted it bright white, and that's where we operated from. My job, I had about a squad of Marines, couple fire teams, I guess, was to provide security for Hackenback, Hack, the corpsman, Doc, that's what everybody calls him. And that's what we did. It just went on a great deal, and we had a lot of good things going. Hackenback got in there, and we sat down at this reunion, and it was kind of funny. We were trying to name all the 8 or 9 or 10 guys that were involved in that thing. And it came in the conversation that the little boy Fu was standing there. Fu, he was our interpreter. He wore a Marine hat, and he picked up English really well. So he was a great help. And then there was a girl that went with us all the time. And I can't remember her name. But anyway, that's the way we operated in the village. And we'd get in the village, and some of the sick and the needy would come to us, and some we searched out. Well, we were trying to make that list, and I was really embarrassed over this stupid thing, but I had made the list and put Foo on there. F-O-O. Foo. That made sense to me. I gave the list to Hack. He looked at it and said, Coleman, you never learned a thing in Vietnam. It's P-H-U. And he hasn't forgotten that and won't let it down, and other people got quite a bang out of that. The other thing we did there, I'm not going to get into any of the medical dental work we did, but we had a very good reputation for going into that village and helping people medically. Some of them were hopeless, but some of it was very trying, and I just remember some of those cases were just as sad as could be. And I don't want to get into that sort of stuff, but Doc deserves a well done for what he did in that little village of Tiktai. But after about 20 years, I found his phone number in some Tank Battalion memorandum or mail out, and I called him, and I said, you remember all those pictures we took at the little first aid stand with Fu and that girl, and some of the pictures we took that we didn't want anybody to see medically and that sort of stuff? And he says, yeah. So he sent some back and forth, and we got into it. Turns out the little corpsman got wind that John Wayne was coming to this spot somewhere. he made the mistake of mailing me a picture of him and John Wayne. Of course, Doc, the medic, looks like he's 16 years old in the picture. John Wayne looks like John Wayne, and Cowman isn't there. So he never told me, the bum, and I chewed his butt out. This trip, I said, how come you didn't tell me about John Wayne? And we never can figure it out because I'm not sure where he was at that time. You know, there's a lot of those slip up. So that's kind of story number one. So if you see the corpsman, he deserves a well done. And we kept that thing together for probably 2 or 3 months, and then I got transferred elsewhere in Tank Battalion. So that's the first story. I hope you see some humor in it. And Bug Hackenback about Foo if you see him. Now the second one is when I first got into the Marine Corps and went through what we call T&T Regiment in the basic school, I got sent to Camp Pendleton. And lo and behold, the Tank Battalion had a football team. I'm not sure now whether it was 6 or 8 men, doesn't make any difference. The key in this little story, and I'm assuming 90% of the people who see this will know who Joe DiMaggio was. He was probably the greatest baseball player who ever played. And he was my hero growing up. And so I get stationed at Tank Battalion, go out for the football team, which the colonel loved and supported, which, you know, those are nice things to know. And we're playing football. We have Joe DiMaggio's son. I'm going to say that again. Joe DiMaggio's son is on that football team. He was a Marine reservist out of San Diego, sent to us for a couple months. He was a good running back. But we had only played 1 or 2 games, and I can't remember the score and stuff. It was a lot of fun, and he was a good running back. But his dad is one of the most famous men in America. His dad, of all things, and I hope you remember what I'm saying, Joe DiMaggio was dating and going with Marilyn Monroe at this time. Now, if you don't know who Marilyn Monroe was, you're missing out in life. Her picture's in some of the Life magazines that John Ware is throwing around that room down there. But Joe is dating her, and it's a big romance all over America. Of course, we're bugging Joe Jr. When is Joe DiMaggio going to come and see one of our games and sit on the bench, if there's a bench there, and bring Marilyn? Now, we don't really care if he brings Joe, but get Marilyn down here. I think half the Marine Corps base was aware of that, and we had it set up. She was coming to our little Mickey Mouse amateur football game at Camp Pendleton. Here's the sadness. Marines all remember when the Cuban Missile Crisis broke. That was quite a surprise, but Camp Pendleton was put on alert. All the football games, all sorts of activities were canceled. And it was get ready to invade Cuba, I guess. That's a level I wasn't serving at. But that was the end of Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. And we really got screwed. I don't think anybody watching this could imagine sitting on a bench with Marilyn Monroe. And she died shortly after that. And there's controversy over what happened there. But to end the story, they were holding her funeral out there up around Los Angeles somewhere, and Joe DiMaggio Sr. got on the phone to the base at Pendleton. He says, I want my son there in dress blues. Well, it just so happened that Joe Jr. did not have a pair. He didn't rate them. I'm not so sure he was so new to the Marine Corps that other than a picture he had ever seen one, a set of blues. And because he was in my platoon, Sunday morning I got a call, and it was the colonel. He said, Cowman, get your ass in here. We need I shouldn't swear?
You're fine.
Okay. get in here and find somebody with a set of blues that fit this kid. And we only got a day to do it, and it was Sunday or something. The funeral's coming up real fast. So I go in there, and of course, most people are gone for over the weekend. But we did find him a set of blues, and I unfortunately can't remember who. But we got him to the funeral in blues. So Joe was happy, Joe Jr. was happy, and he gets his picture on the front page of Newsweek, him and Joe walking, and he's in dress blues. So it made the Marine Corps look good, but that's kind of the end of that story. I imagine there's a lot of people out there who never knew that Joe Jr. was there aboard the base. He was a celebrity in the San Diego area, and unfortunately, everything went foul in his life, and I guess he shot himself somewhere. That's the issue on Joe DiMaggio. Now, I have more if you want it. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about Green Bay Packer football and a scam that I pulled and got to see some ball games. When I went back to Vietnam later, I was representing McDeck, Quantico Development and Education Command, and we had worked with, I believe, Aerojet General, and we wanted an automatic grenade launcher. All you guys watching this know what an M79 was and how we got the 13th man in the squad, the Grenadier, and all the grunts loved that. But we were concerned tactically over having an automatic grenade launcher. Well, they developed one, and it had a bicycle sprocket in it and everything. But the beauty of that weapon is it had a 12-round magazine, about the size of a football. And you could sit there and put that magazine right here and go bunk, 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 and have 12 hand grenades in the air before the first one went off. We liked that for defense. It wasn't an assault weapon, really. It was for defense. So I'm over there teaching that. Now, there were, in the letter came through to that outfit some way. A little 5th or 6th grade girl in Kenosha, Wisconsin, wanted to know why the Marines are over there and what are we doing. And somehow I got the letter because of her family and stuff. And we communicated a couple times. And so help me, I can't remember writing more than a couple letters, and she'd write one back. Well, some 25, 30 years later, I read in the paper where whoever contacted me had died. And so I called her, and in the conversation, Tammy's name came up. That's the girl who wrote me the letter. She's 40-some years old now, doing very well in education in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So she was going to call me. And in the meantime, they went through a lot of the person who's died belongings, and they found one of the letters I wrote. And she said to her mother, "Whatever happened to that bum?" referring to me. And she said, well, I talked to him the other day. The little girl said, "I want to call him." And so I was in, when I got that call, I believe I was in Salida getting ready to go skiing, and it was bitterly cold in the morning. But we talked, and we stayed in touch. And on one of the letters, she had no knowledge of Marine Corps stuff, and I was talking that, but she seemed like a nice little girl. So in the conversation, she said, "Jimmy, our family has tickets to all the home Packer games." And she said something about, "Are you a Green Bay fan?" Well, I've been for 40 years and never got to see a game. But to close that little story out, because I wrote that letter, I got to see 2 or 3 Green Bay Packer home football games. And to me, that's the only good thing that ever came out of Vietnam, as far as I'm concerned. And I was a Packer fan, so I got to see it. And that's the story on the Green Bay Packers. Now, in that story, I mentioned the XM-174 weapon and how I took 30 of them to Vietnam in 70 or 71 and had a well-trained sergeants on the mechanics of the weapon. It was well received. I wish I could tell you what happened to all 30 of them, but I don't know anymore because things happened and I got out of there. But while I was shooting it one day, up on Freedom Hill in Da Nang, and P.X. Kelly, who would become Commandant of the Marine Corps, was in command. Now, I don't know, I think that was he commanded the whole 1st Marine Division. I don't know what it was. I didn't know he was there that day. So I put the demonstration on, and one of the highlights of the demonstration I got to do, and the people just loved it, is I could hold that weapon and fire all 12 hand grenades at the top of Freedom Hill out on their firing range and get them all in line out there before the first one went off. That was what the weapon was designed to do. So I get done firing the thing, and everybody's getting ready. We had a couple of them ground mounted on, it fit on the same tripod, an ENT mechanism as a machine gun. So we had a couple of them ground mounted, and anybody who wanted could shoot them single shot or a couple rounds. And somebody came up and tapped me on the back. And I didn't turn around and look because I was safety officer on a lot of that stuff. So everything looked good. And whoever this was says, son, called me son. That got my attention, but I didn't look. And he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, if I had designed that weapon, I would have made it fully automatic. And I said, the switch is right here, sir. It was P.X. Kelly. Now that got my attention. And he wanted to hold it. And boy, I said, here, you can have it. Here, take it home with you, whatever. And we never talked much, but you don't get to see officers of that level very often. And that worked out good with PX. And the name of that weapon was the XM-174, and a lot of them watching this are going to want to see it. You can Google Marine Corps weapons XM-174, and it shows up as a weapon. We never adopted it because things were slowing down in Vietnam. My tour of duty got cut short, and I came home, which was fine with me. And the sergeant and I left somebody in charge of all that stuff, and a lot of good units had a couple of them to use as they wanted to. Now that concludes what I thought I would say for this interview. I hope I didn't bottle it up too bad or dork it up, but I worked on those because I thought they were a little unusual and maybe somebody will get a laugh of them. So thanks for your time.
That was great. Thank you so much for your time and sharing that with us, and thank you for your service.